Hello my dears, welcome back to another video. So you might remember that I made a video recently where I critiqued some of the toxic sides of feminism along with some of the toxic sides of the red pill. Now the feedback to that video has been interesting because I'm quite used to feminists being upset with me at this point, you know. It's like I'm used to it now. And so I anticipated that because I was criticizing both the feminists and the red pill, that I would, of course, spark a bit of outrage between the two. And so I kind of braced myself for equal impacts, or like roughly equal impact. But you know what's crazy? The feminists were actually on their best behavior for some reason. I actually barely got any outrage from the feminists in my last video, which was really interesting because I did get some criticism from the feminists. Their main critique of me was that they felt like I was only highlighting the negative sides of feminism. They were like, what about the other parts of feminism that are really good? Not all feminists, you know, that was kind of the energy they were giving. When feminists are talking about men and saying men are this, men are that, men do this, men do that, and the men go, not all men, you guys get frustrated and you're like, come on guys, I think you guys should know that we obviously don't mean all men. That's usually your rebuttal. So what I would say to those feminists is, use your own logic in this situation, and then maybe that will help us resolve any problems, you know what I mean? So annoyingly my audio cut off here, but basically what I was saying was I didn't get as much criticism from feminists as I was expecting, but the red pill fans definitely had a lot more to say. So I thought I would read the most common criticisms that I got from them and just kind of react to them, just because I thought it'd be fun. Why not? And I also thought it would be a good opportunity for me to fill in some gaps as well, because I didn't get to say everything that I wanted to say in my last video because I felt like it was too long. So I feel like this is a good opportunity for me to kind of add a bit more to my original video. All right, so this person had multiple criticisms, so we're going to break them down because all of his criticisms were very common criticisms that I saw within my comments. So he says, outside of reproduction doesn't equal outside of water. That's a wrong comparison and it's childish. Personally, I think the whole men versus women thing in general, to be honest, is very childish. Like, it's cute when you're like 10 years old and still in school, like on the playground, like, you know, boys versus girls, boys have germs. But like when you're still talking like that as an adult, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? But in regards to the whole needing water does not equal needing women. Now, there were quite a few people actually, surprisingly, who didn't understand my argument here. So they think that I'm saying that a man not needing a woman is equal to him not needing water, oxygen, or food. But that was not the argument that I was making at all. I thought it was clear, but since it clearly wasn't, I'll try again. What I was criticizing in that part of the video was the idea of creating a hypothetical distorted reality in order to make your argument make sense. And the reason why I got really ridiculous with the examples that I was using was to prove that if you start creating distorted hypothetical realities, you can make the most ridiculous things make sense. But anyways, he continues, you're just triggered that men can survive without women, but yes, we can. You can do it. I believe in you. I mean, personally, I would argue that you sound very triggered. But anyways, he continues. Women don't dominate healthcare. Men also do healthcare jobs. If you want to argue the point, show more studies and data, not just your friends who work in the care industry or some exceptions. If you want some data to reference to, then here you go. Now, my source is the UK National Health Service, aka the NHS. I don't know about you, but I would say, yeah, that's pretty dominant. If you want to dispute the NHS on those figures, you're more than welcome to. Although I do think you'll struggle considering they are the UK's health institution. So I think they know who works for them, but you know best. So by all means, you can do it. I need to be more serious because these people are really upset. But the reason why it's just so funny to me is because in my video, I never say that women are more important than men. I literally say that men and women are both equally important and both equally need each other. But it still makes them angry. Like, it just blows my mind. Now, one of the most popular comments I got from these red pill guys was just like, men don't need women. We can survive without women. Blah, 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 blah. Like, they really try to drum that home. I'll be honest. I do wonder how much of this is just a misunderstanding between me and the red pill, because when they say that men don't need women, I'm not sure if they're talking about strictly within the romantic context or if they mean it within the societal context, because it seems to me as though what they mean is that men don't need relationships. But then they'll start talking about societal things like infrastructure and how men do all these jobs in society and those jobs in society. But what's the relevance of all of that? So I guess I'm just a bit confused as to what exactly the red pill are arguing, because if they're arguing that men don't need women in a romantic context, then I'm going to need them to use examples that are relevant to a romantic context. But seeing as I've seen red pillers say, well, if women disappeared tomorrow, society would be completely fine, it would keep running, I have to assume that you mean this on a societal level, and therefore I very strongly disagree with you. Believe it or not, this whole theory that if women disappeared tomorrow, society would be perfectly fine has actually been tested. Now, red pillars might not be aware of this history, but luckily I am. So let me give you a very short history lesson. It was the year 1975 in Iceland. Now, for my British viewers, I'm talking about the country, not the shop down the high street. The women of Iceland were unsatisfied and unhappy with the way they were being dismissed in society and how all of their contributions in society were being completely disregarded. But of course, they were met with the same kind of rhetoric and the same kind of attitude, which is the idea that if women disappeared tomorrow, society would be perfectly fine. So of course, they didn't really care to try and meet their demands because they didn't really think that women were that important in society. So what did the women of Iceland do? Well, they went on strike for just one day. So what they did was they refused to do any of their paid work. They also refused to do any childcare or any household duties. They refused to do absolutely anything. And so they literally took a day off. Now, the men of Iceland tried their best to prepare as much as they could because they knew that this day was coming. So they tried their best, to try and prepare for it. But regardless of how much they tried to prepare, this day was a complete catastrophe for the entire country.
I was 7 when the women of Iceland went on strike on October 24th, 1975. They marched into the center of Reykjavik and filled the streets. 90% of women did no work that day. No schools opened, no banks opened, no kids' aid, no buses rode into town. It was impossible to get anything done on that day because when women don't work, nothing works. They changed the impression of the value of women for women and men alike forever because nothing worked in Iceland that day. So they changed the very reality that I grew up with and they changed my view on it forever.
It was a complete disaster. So much so that the government of Iceland bent the knee and agreed to the women's conditions and implemented them into law the following year. It turned out that all the women needed to do was just take one day off for the men of Iceland to realize just how important they actually were for society. And I'm positive that if it was the men of Iceland who were the ones who went on strike, it would have also been a catastrophe because guess what? We both matter. Who would have thought? The men of Iceland have actually experienced what it would be like if women disappeared tomorrow. Whereas many of these red pill guys, all they have is male ego and blissful ignorance because they've never had to live in a society that didn't have any women in it. So they're able to talk all this crap because they've taken women for granted, because all they've ever known is a society where women are in it and women are fulfilling their important roles. And another comment I saw a lot of as well was, well, men could do women's jobs, but women couldn't do men's jobs. Red pill fans, I beg you just pick up one history book, just one, because once again, that is also false and history proves that to be false because during World War II, when all the men went out to war, women did indeed do men's jobs. But moving on, someone else said, I think there's still a lot of truth in women not wanting to do hard, messy jobs. It's true men and women both do hard and messy jobs to some extent, but you can't compare a woman working in care to a man working in construction, and men are far more likely to do dangerous jobs. The issue I have with this is that you're pushing the goalpost because the initial comment or the initial statement was that women don't do hard jobs or women don't do physically challenging jobs. So I give examples of the physically challenging jobs that women do, and now all of a sudden it's okay, women do physically challenging jobs, but they don't do as physically challenging jobs. It's important for us to be reasonable when we're having these arguments, considering how much the red pill goes on and on and on about how men are physically stronger than women, which is a fact. Men are physically stronger than us. You would think that they would also understand that that also has an impact on the types of jobs that women are physically able to do. There are going to be limitations on the types of jobs that women can do. Just because a woman is not able to do the jobs that require a man's amount of strength does not mean that they don't do very physically demanding jobs. To dismiss the physically challenging jobs that women do simply because men wouldn't find them physically challenging is like dunking on a toddler as they struggle to pick up a box simply because you as an adult wouldn't struggle to pick it up. So when women go into very, very physically demanding jobs, they're going into the jobs that are very physically demanding for them. So the statement that women don't do physically demanding jobs is false, because women do very physically demanding jobs for their physical strength level. This is why I say competing men and women just doesn't make any logical sense, because we are apples and oranges. Like you can't really compare us because we are biologically different. It would be like me dunking on a man for the fact that he can't give birth. Like, imagine I just got to a man and be like, what, you can't give birth, bro? But you can't push a baby out your pee-pee, bro? That literally makes no sense, because you have to consider biological limitations. I do also think there is something to be said about how we very much disregard and belittle all of the jobs that are more traditionally feminine, because this is something that really irritates me about feminists, in how they will celebrate a woman who chooses to be a CEO of a company, but a woman who chooses to prioritize her family and choose to get married and become a full-time mother taking care of her children with no break. To them, that's not worthy of acknowledgement, because they view that as inferior and weaker compared to a woman who chooses to do more traditionally masculine roles. And people within the red pill, and also red pill women themselves, are also guilty of this exact same behavior. They'll see the roles that women dominate in society and they'll be like, yeah, women dominate that, but that's not that hard. Oh yeah, women might be the dominant ones in those kind of positions, but that's not exactly that hard. It's not exactly as hard as the jobs that men do. So there's no misunderstanding. I am not looking down or denying the importance that male-dominated industries play within society. They're extremely important. But my point is, how can you say that a nurse's job is less important, or that it's not very hard, simply because it's not an infrastructure job? Why is your metric for whether something is hard or valuable strictly masculine? Now, in regards to the last part of their comment where they said that men are much more likely to do dangerous jobs, that is true. Men are more likely to do more dangerous jobs. Men are more likely to take risks in general than women. And the arguments for why this is due to like biological differences as well. Would you look at that? Biology. It's important, isn't it? And the evolutionary biology reasons that have been put forward for that is that women being reckless or risky would be very bad for our species. And when you consider the fact that women are the ones who carry babies, it wouldn't be good if women were just out here taking risks. Imagine a pregnant woman who just loves a cheeky risk. It wouldn't be very good, because the more risky you are, the more likely you are to pass away. And women passing away isn't very good, because women are the ones who carry children. Interestingly enough, this is also the reason why during times of war, men are the ones who go out and fight, and women are the ones who are usually evacuated and like saved. So one of the reasons why this is because men are stronger than us, and they're also faster than us, so they do better when it comes to physical combat, etc. But another reason as to why women are usually the ones who are evacuated, society can afford to lose more men than it can afford to lose women, if that makes sense. Because during times of war, typically, you know, you lose a chunk of your population, because there will be some people who die at war. So you need to be able to replace it. And so if you have 10 men, but only 1 woman, you're only going to have 1 baby. But if you had 10 women and 1 man, then you'd have 10 babies and a very, very happy man. So for these reasons, society has always kind of been geared towards trying to protect women. And so when you think about our biology, a lot of the stuff that we do is hardwired towards our survival. And so in order for us to maintain our survival, we need to be able to maintain the ones within our species who are able to create life. So that's where that protective instinct for women comes from. It's a very subconscious thing, and a lot of the time you don't even realize that you're doing it, but that is what drives that protective nature. Now, if I wanted to be a petty feminist, I could use this as an excuse to justify why women are the ones who are superior and why women are more important than men. I still don't believe that means women are more important, because the way I see it is like this. Women have the unique gift of bringing life into the world, but they lack the physical strength to be able to fully protect it. Whereas men have the gift of strength, which allows them to protect the life that is brought into the world. Because what good is it to have the gift of bringing life into the world if you can't fully protect it? And what good is having the gift of strength if you have nothing to build for and nothing to protect? So yeah, I will always push back on anyone who tries to argue that men are more important than women, or women are more important than men. I recently listened to Andrew Schulz and Chris Williamson give their 2 cents on what they believe attracts young men to the red pill, as well as what they personally thought about the manosphere. And I thought it was quite interesting, so I'll share that with you.
The manosphere. Give me your thoughts on the manosphere.
Yeah, what about the manosphere? Has always existed. It just got less funny. That's my issue with it. It's like, be funny. Be funny about whatever it is. Like my favorite comedian, the greatest comedian of all time, hands down, is Patrice O'Neal. Like, Patrice O'Neal is early manosphere. Like, I don't know if you watch any of his stuff. Like, I'm early Manosphere. Like, my stuff, I've got jokes that are like perfectly aligned with Manosphere shit, but they're jokes. It's funny. What was so great about Tate was he was funny. Like, Mark was telling us this one thing. I didn't even see this one. He's like, I'll never let a girl drive my car. He goes, they're like, why? He goes, have you ever thrown something at your girl and she caught it? like that's just a hilarious, that joke could go on stage. Like, you could take, he's got lines you could take and go on stage, and that's why it was so effective. It's like, it tapped into almost like Borscht Belt comedy. Remember, have you heard of like the Borscht Belt? Like old back in the day comedy, like the take my wife, please, these one-liners, right? These one-liners were all incredibly offensive, but they tap into feelings that we have. And our feelings are not the things we execute. You get cut off, you want to be like, I want to fucking kill that person, but you don't really kill them. It's a momentary feeling. So you have frustration with your wife, the take my wife, please. Everybody in the audience, every husband who's dealt with their wife bitching about something, you know, in there, I relate to that moment. I relate to that feeling, because comedy's about feeling. It's not about truth. It's not about what should be true. It's about a feeling that is real that you've had. So I think what happens with these jokes is they tap into moments of what it is like to be a guy in this day and age. And then not funny people got into it and ruined it, like everything, and then started taking every single line seriously. And then when you start to take every single line seriously, you just seem like you're hate women, you're angry at women, you're bitter. That's not, I don't think anybody really at the end of the day wants to resonate with that.
The fundamental way that it's positioned is that men and women are enemies or adversaries at the very
they're
least.
Trying to extract something from you.
Yeah.
It's kind of dangerous to think about like that.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a particularly healthy way to create a foundation to build stuff up from that. Another one of the influences here as well. I went to Miami for the first time ever 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I was seeing online in men's advice made a lot more sense after I'd been to Miami. Miami unlocked the back of my brain in terms of going, oh.
Like what? What were you saying?
So, for instance, your wealth is your primary source of value to the world. Who you are, the person that you're with, the table that you're on, the size of the bottle, the girls that are on your arm, what it is that the girls, how they were dressed. Like girls out in party dresses, maxi party dresses at 12 midday, going for coffee in heels. I'm like, where the fuck are you going?
Yeah.
What is this? And that to me made a lot of sense, because it seems like a good chunk of Miami culture, very transactional, very transient, very resource-based, has informed a lot of men's advice on the internet. And because of that, they're reverse engineering, Miami is how all women are.
Right.
No, it's not. I've met 500,000 women in my life stood on the front door of nightclubs.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Most women, on average, are caring and kind and want a guy that they can get into a relationship with that cares about them.
Yeah.
Some of them fuck up and some of them are outright mean and nasty and all the rest of it. But so are guys.
Yeah.
Like, my personal experience, which is vast, does not suggest that girls are like the ruthless gold diggers that everybody says. However,
I agree.
Think about, you're a guy on the internet. You're a guy on the internet who doesn't have much experience with women. So what you do is you start consuming content from people who seem like they do.
And
or maybe
also
they
consuming content that feeds your fears.
Precisely. But what are the sort of stories that are sufficiently newsworthy to break through onto the internet? They're the most egregious transgressions of this particular... It's the girl that got into a relationship with some Canadian guy and took all of his money, and now he lives on the street and he can't ever see his kids and his dog hates him. And
while he was sleeping, went out, fucked the guy in a gas station, came back. Like, that's a real story
Made him
that a
lick
girl
it.
told.
Like, all of that.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that break through. So if you don't have real world experience that can disprove that...
Yeah.
Quite rightly, you're vehemently going to think these bitches are out here trying to fucking get us. I need to be horribly uncertain whenever I'm around a woman.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't blame the guys for thinking it, to be honest with you. I think that like there's a lot of frustration when you're not in control of your sexual destiny. And there's two ways to handle that frustration. There's one is go inward, the other is go outward, right? I'm frustrated. It's like, well, what can I do to alleviate that frustration? Can I like get better at chat? Can I learn what these girls are interested in and like how to make them feel comfortable, right? Or do I justify that frustration by going outward, which is all women are gold diggers. They don't like me because I'm short, or they don't like me because I'm skinny, or they don't like me because I'm poor, or yada yada yada.
I thought this conversation that they had was really interesting because I feel like it just kind of confirms my theory, which is that most of our societal problems just stem from people being chronically online, to be honest. Because like they were saying, if many of these guys who have these hostilities towards women, if they were going outside and having more experiences with women and actually talking to women, then they'd be able to have personal experiences that would contradict the stuff that they're seeing online. The same goes for women, to be honest. Like, I saw this video on Twitter where this woman was absolutely petrified of a man who came to approach her.
I'm literally shaking right now because I just had a man approach me in a parking lot and it went fine. And I'm going to tell you why it went fine and how to address it, because it was in a book I read and this is how you're supposed to address it, but it scared me. I'm literally shaking. So this guy, I'm alone with my son, by myself, a woman, and a male approached me in a parking lot. He's, "Excuse me, miss," and I don't know why in the hell he was approaching me or what he was trying to do. And before he was probably 30 feet from me when he said, "Excuse me, ma'am." And I turned around and I literally yelled at him and I said, "Do not approach me." And he immediately started going in the other direction. And I just kept saying it over and over and over. I said, "Do not approach me. Do not approach me." And he, of course, got "What the F?" He started cussing and yelling, what's your problem? And I looked at him and he actually then crossed a couple cars down from my car. He didn't come anywhere near me. He crossed a couple cars down from my car and was like, continuing to cuss and say, "What's your problem?" And I said, "You do not approach women in a parking lot." I just kept saying, "Do not approach me. You do not approach women in a parking lot," yelling it. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. Ever. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. And if a male does approach you, you need to turn around and use the strongest voice that you can possibly use with them. Don't be polite. They need to literally screw off. No male should be approaching you in a parking lot.
Aside from the fact that whoever wrote the book that she read, where she got this technique from, clearly ripped off Dora the Explorer.
And I just kept saying it over and over and over. I said, "Do not approach me. Do not approach me."
Swiper, no swiping. Swiper, no swiping. Swiper, no swiping.
Dora should sue. The blatant disrespect. They're just out here stealing her anti-crime techniques. But yeah, all jokes aside though, I just don't think it's healthy to have this much anxiety around the opposite sex. Now, I don't know this woman's story. Maybe she's experienced something traumatic in the past, which is making her very fearful and kind of projecting that experience onto the situation. However, I do know that there are a lot of women who feel this way even without having any previous experience with something like this. And it is coming from the fact that they see a lot of stuff online. They see a lot of stuff that basically essentially tells them that because they're women, they are inevitably going to be victims of some kind of crime in one way or another. And although I agree that you should as a woman avoid risky situations and avoid putting yourself in potential danger, this is quite over the top. She could have just dropped her keys or her card and he could have been trying to give it to her. Maybe she forgot something when she was at the till before she got to the parking lot and he was just trying to give it back to her. She has no idea why he was calling her, but she just assumed because he's a man that it was likely going to be dangerous. And so I do think that us being chronically online is a bit of a problem. Do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, before I forget, some of you have been commenting that Pearl responded to my video. I did see the response video that she made to me, and I have to give Pearl credit. She took the video really well. Let me clear up some falsehoods. I do not hate Pearl. I know that some people are convinced that I hate Pearl just because I criticized her, because any criticism of anyone automatically means that you hate them. I actually agree with Pearl on some of the points that she makes on her podcast. When she's not trolling, because Pearl loves a good cheeky troll. That girl loves to troll. When she's not trolling, she does actually sometimes make some really good points. So in her response video, she respectfully pushed back on the comments that I made about her anti-marriage sentiments. And Pearl's point is basically that because she's spoken to so many of these men who've been really shafted by divorce court and family court, etc., she just doesn't feel like she can in good faith promote marriage. So I understand what motivates Pearl to have the perspective that she has on marriage. It seems to me that it's rooted in her compassion for men. And while I completely understand that, because I don't disagree with Pearl about the disadvantages that men experience from divorce, etc., because I agree, there's no debate to be had there. I just disagree with her solution, because her solution is very much throwing away the baby with the bathwater, but I don't think she's considered what the ripple effect of that will be. Other than that, stop spreading rumors that I hate Pearl, okay? I don't make a habit of hating people I don't know and have never met. It's very weird. Well, that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, then do like and subscribe. I am also on other socials, and I also make music if you'd like to check me out. Thank you very, very much for giving me your time today, and I will see you in my next video.